Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. I'm using a new system. I want to make sure it's working here. If you're watching it, you can hear me. You say Khan or Shalom in the group, in the chat. If you're watching it, you can hear me. All right. It looks like I can be heard. Khan, all praises. Right? All praises, all praises, all praises. All right. All praise to the Most High. All praise to the Most High. All right. Shalom, shalom. By Yafya Allah. Isha'at Kabash. All right, with WFI Detroit. Coming at you with another live video. All praise to the Most High, man. So, we got a good one coming today. We going into, the 7 heads. The 7 heads and who they are. Okay? That's what we going into. Shalom. Everybody that's viewing. Appreciate y'all spending y'all time with me today. We gonna get right to it, man. So, you want to grab a pencil, paper, or pen and paper so we can get into this thing. So I'm gonna kick it off with this preset in Revelation 13. We'll start off with Revelation chapter 13, verse number 1. All right, this is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. It says, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Right? So you have a beast coming out. It's a red dragon with 7 heads. Okay? So I'm going to write out these 7 heads. Just bear with me. Get this thing to work here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to write these 7 heads out. Bear with me. See if this stuff works here. Like I said, we're working with a new system here, so we want to make sure everything is working out just fine. Okay. I'm gonna hit refresh on that. All right, shalom, shalom. WFI Europe, brother Mayim Kayim. Shalom, y'all. So let's get to it. So 7 heads, right? Zoom in here. Number 1. Or matter of fact, I don't like how that looks. Erase that. Bear with me. Let's see if this thing works. I'm actually write these things. I'm actually write these things on the screen. Write this stuff on the screen. All right. Here. All right. Perfect. gonna write these things on the screen. We're gonna write out the 7 heads. Shalom, everybody tuning in. Shalom, everybody tuning in. Get this thing out of studio mode. All right. So, Slakia, bear with me with this new system here. So, number 1, and my handwriting is horrible, but bear with me. So, we got Britain, right? You got Rome. You got Greece. And you got Germany. Wrote that pretty bad, but that's I wrote that pretty bad. That's Germany. Let me rewrite that, man. I gotta bear with me, my handwriting, man. I'm left-handed, you know. So you got Germany. You got France. You got Russia. And then you have Spain. Okay, so those are the 7 heads. You got Britain, Rome, Greece, Germany, France, Russia, and Spain. But today, we're going to touch on these 2. Rome and Greece. So, why is the focus on Rome and Greece? Well, Greece laid the cultural foundation for European civilization. You know, they influenced the philosophy, the art, even politics. Because when you look at Athenian democracy, that's the model for the democratic systems worldwide today. And on the other hand, you have Rome. Now, Rome's influence on Europe is unparalleled. Okay, it was the first to dominate that entire region. And even when Rome fell, it shaped the continent. It reshaped the continent. It allowed new kingdoms to rise that evolved to the kingdoms that we know today. So that's why we're touching on these 2 first, because they're the foundation of the European structure. And that's what these 7 heads represent, the European power structure. These 7 nations shape Europe and the world, the Western world that we see today. And there's no other nation outside of these 7 that's more powerful and prevalent when it comes to the history of Europe. Okay? So, we'll get to it through the Spirit. Okay? We'll get to it. So, So first I want to say, let's talk about Greece. You can't mention Greece without mentioning Macedon. You can't mention Macedon without mentioning Alexander the Great and the Argead dynasty. So I want to write that down as well. So the Argead dynasty. Erase what I got here. And go back to it. So the Argead dynasty. The Argead dynasty Like I said, you can't mention Greece without mentioning the Argead dynasty. So the Argead dynasty was formed in 808 BC. Now, write this date down. It's extremely important. 808 BC for the Argead dynasty. And we'll circle back to why that date is important later. But for now, I'm going to touch on Alexander. So let's get 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 1. We're going to get 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse number 1. All right. Bear with me, I'm a little under the weather. So 1 Maccabees 1 and 1. Right, it says, and it happened that Alexander son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, has smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So Alexander became the first king over the Greek Empire, because before that it was just a bunch of city states, which we'll touch on later. But nonetheless, he conquered Darius, the Persians and the Medes in 323 BC. Okay. And I just want to touch on a few things on this verse. So, number one, when you see Alexander the Macedonian came out of the land of Kittim. So it says Alexander came out of the land of Kittim. So what is Kittim? Right? What is Kittim? I'm going to share my screen, actually. I'm going to share my screen and pull the scripture up so you guys can see it. So what is Kittim? What is that? All right. Kittim. Let's pull this up. All right. Let's pull this up. All right. We go deal with the land of Kittim. This is not showing the right screen. Bear with me. All right, cool. All right. So I want to pull up the Blue Letter Bible. So I want to get Genesis, the 10th chapter. You're dealing with Kittim, okay? You're dealing with Kittim. Can't zoom in for whatever reason. All right. So we had Genesis chapter 10, and verse number 1. It says, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus." So let's jump down to verse 4. "And the sons of Javan, Elijah, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodim." So I'm going to click in here and look into Kittim real quick. Right, so when you look into Kittim, you will see, like it says, hence an islander in general, the Greeks and Romans on the shores opposite of Palestine. A general term for all islanders of the Mediterranean Sea. And that's where things were situated in the ancient world with Greece and Rome. Okay, so let's pull that up. Mediterranean Sea. All right, see if we can get a map real quick. All right, so this is the Mediterranean Sea right here, right? You guys can see it. This is Italy right here in the orange. You got Greece in the pink right here. So this would be the land of Kittim. And of course, Alexander came out of Greece. But Kittim is the son of Japheth. Okay, so Kittim means that Alexander came out the land of Japheth. But here's the where things get interesting. So Haman from the book of Esther is called both a Macedonian, the same as Alexander, and an Argead, which links the Macedonians to the Edomites of the Bible. I'm going to say that again. Haman from the book of Esther is called both an Argead and a Macedonian, which would link the Macedonians, Alexander's people, who come from the Argead dynasty, to the Edomite. Okay? So I want to get Esther, the 16th chapter, just to prove that about Haman. When you read additions to Esther out the Apocrypha, the 16th chapter. Right, let's get it. Or the additions to Esther chapter 16. So bear with me. Dang, man. Got this book all right here. It's kind of hard to turn these pages. All right, so additions to Esther chapter 16, right? We'll get 16 and verse 10. Check this out. This is where Haman is called a Macedonian. It says, for Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Amattai, being a stranger from the Persian blood and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. So Haman was called a Macedonian. Now, when you flip to Esther, the 3rd chapter of the Old Testament, you will see he was also referred to as an Agite. I'm going to pull up some information on Ag in a minute. Right? So Esther chapter 3 and 1, it says, after these things, the king Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Amattai, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So this man was considered an Agite, right? So I'm gonna look up Agite and look, just get into this thing real quick. So when you look into Agite, it tells you here that Agites, according to Bible tradition, descended from Ag, king of the Amalekites. And I want to look it up on Wikipedia. You will see, right? You will see that a Greek translator of the Bible, he actually called Haman a Macedonian, linking back to Ag. Okay? And like I said, the Argead dynasty is where Alexander's people come from, 808 BC. Again, that date should be written down because it's going to be very important. So the Argead dynasty, again, right, is the Macedonian people, right, with Alexander and so all praise. So we go deal with this stuff. All right, so let's move forward again. So if Kittim is a land that belonged to Japhet and Macedonian or Edomites, how did the Edomites end up in the land of Japhet? So we're gonna take a moment, right, to write down 3 civilizations and 3 key historical events. We're gonna write down 3 civilizations and 3 key historical events. All right. So let's get this written down. All right. So you got civilizations. And you got the 3 historical. All right. Don't mind my spelling. Right. Events. All right. So these are the civilizations we're going to write down. Well, it doesn't look like it's picking up. Bear with me. Thought it was showing. Like I said, working with some new stuff, trying to, make this work for you all. All right. Cool. All right. So you got the 3 civilizations, 3 historical events. So number 1, you got the Cycladic society. All right, cool. It's writing. Awesome. So you got the Cycladic civilization. You got the Minoans. You got some people called the Mycenaeans. Write these down. And you got 3 historical events. You got something called the Bronze Age collapse. Then you have the Greek Dark Ages. Slocky. Greek Dark Ages. Then you have Archaic Greece. You have Archaic Greece. All right, so you want to write these down. You got the Cycladic civilization, Minoans, and Mycenaeans. So the Cycladic civilization was dated around 32 BC, 3200 BC. The Minoans was around 31 to about 1100 BC. And then the Mycenaeans was from 1750 to about 1050 BC. So the Cycladic civilization, they were seafaring people. They were people that were on the Algean Sea that contributed to Greek culture. The Mycenaeans was an advanced civilization from Crete. They were known for their art, architect that influenced the Mycenaeans. And the Mycenaeans were pretty much the early Greeks whose collapse led to the Greek Dark Ages. I didn't leave myself enough room for these dates here, but we're going to make it work. So the Bronze Age collapse happened between these years here, and this is all BC. So 1200 to 1150 BC, right? It was a mysterious, widespread of collapsed civilizations in the Mediterranean, which led to the Greek Dark Ages, which was 12 to 800 BC. And then Archaic Greece, which is the rise of the Greek city-states like Argos, Athens, Sparta, Delphi, Corinth, these different city-states. And that happened in 800 BC. So the Argead dynasty, the Archaic Greece, that's another important date you want to write down. That's another important date you want to write down. So here you have it. That here you have it. That's what we're looking at here. So now we want to touch on these different civilizations. I want to show a couple of images of these civilizations. So bear with me. I want to show a couple of images of these civilizations so we can look into it. So the Cycladic. Here's some, right? Cycladic sailors, right? These are different sailors of the Cycladic. Then you got people from the Minoan. There's a Minoan fisherman. Okay, so, just take a moment and look closely. What do all these images have in common? Or you just take a look at them. Well, they don't look like what we typically imagine as ancient Greeks today. Instead, they have dark skin and if you look closely, bushy hair. So these are actually the descendants of Japhet, who lived in these lands before the Bronze Age collapse and the emergence of, right? In the emergence of Archaic Greece. So, again, I want to write these dates down. So the people right here, right, are the people that lived in the land around, the 3000 BC all the way up into the Greek or the Bronze Age collapse. And then after that, you get a new form of Greeks coming in the year 800 BC. So very important. Write that down. All right. Now let's take a look at 2 Kings. We're going to take a look at 2 Kings. Right, I'm actually pulling it up on the screen. Let me pull this one up on the screen. Right, we're going to take a look at 2 Kings, the 8th chapter. Right, 2 Kings chapter 8. We're going to start at 16. How did I end up on the... No, I want the blue letter Bible. Yeah, let's re-get this. 2 Kings chapter 8 and verse 16. All right. So it says, in the 5th year of Joram, the king, it's like the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, being then king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. 32 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem, and he walked by the ways of the king of Israel, as did the house of Ahab, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. Okay. It says, yet the Lord would not destroy Judah. It's like for not destroy Judah for David's his servant's sake, as he promised him to give him always a light and to his children. And in his days, right, Jehoram, right, the king of Judah, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves. So Edom, which we established to be the Macedonians, they revolted around the time of Jeroboam's reign. Now, Jeroboam, he reigned from 848 until 841 BC. But real quickly, I want to, get this thing situated real quickly. This thing is not clicking, not doing what I wanted to do. All right, so I want to erase this stuff, and then I want to write that down, because that's another one of those important dates we want to write down. I'm gonna erase all this stuff, and we go write that down. Jeroboam. So the Edomites revolted from under Judah in between the time of Jeroboam the king. Jehoram, right? So pull that up. Hopefully it's staying right like it's supposed to. Okay. Okay, yeah. Not working how it's supposed to be. Bear with me. All right, bear with me. So like, yep, bear with me. So I'm gonna just go ahead and write this thing down. We just gonna have to see if it works. So you got Joram. He reigned from 848 to 841 BC. All right, that's another one of those important dates. 848 to 841 BC, that's when the Edomites revolted from under Judah. All right, that's when the Edomites revolted from under Judah. All right, so let me see this, man. This thing is not. This thing act like it wasn't trying to load at first. Yeah, that should be better. Much, much better. Okay, so that date should be written down as well. Jeroboam reigned in 848, right? And the Edomites revolted. So now that we discussed Greece, let's shift our focus to Italy. Around this time, right, Italy Around this time, Italy was dominated by the Etruscans. It was dominated by the Etruscans, who ruled around 900 BC. Another significant power in the region were the Samnites, who was a formidable nation in their own right. Right, and sandwiched between those kingdoms, you had a new kingdom emerging, taking shape, the kingdom of Rome. As you can see, the red is the Etruscans and the green are the Samnites. And that orange right there are the Romans. So the kingdom of Rome came around 753 BC. That's another date you want to write down. 753 BC is when the Romans came around. Okay? So the Romans came around 753 BC. It's another date that you want to write down. And this coincides with the rise of the Argead dynasty, which we've identified as having Edomite origins. It coincides with the Edomites' revolt against Joram and the appearance of a new archaic Greece following the collapse of a darker-skinned Mycenaean civilization. So far you should have these 5 dates noted. 5 very important dates should be noted, right? We go pull them up here. We'll pull these dates that you should have noted here, right? Refresh that. Number 1, we'll write these 5 down, right? You got the Edomites rebelling. That was 848 BC. And you got the Argead dynasty. (808 BC). And you got the archaic Greece, which is when the new Greek city-states formed. That was after the Bronze Age collapse. Then you got the start of Rome. You got the start of Rome in 753 BC. And all this happened after the Bronze Age collapse. All this happened after the Bronze Age collapse. Okay? So these 5 important dates should be written down. You got the Edomites rebelling, 848, the Argead dynasty, 808, the Archaic Greece in 800, the start of Rome in 753 BC, and then the Bronze Age collapse. That was 3 centuries from 1200 to 800 BC. So if you've been following closely, you'll recognize that Greece, Rome, and Macedon, which are 3 major kingdoms in ancient European history, all started around the same period, which aligns with the Edomites rebelling in 848. Okay, Lord willing, that makes sense. What I'm showing you is that the Edomites moved into those lands after ancient civilizations like the Mycenaeans collapsed. And as they settled in those regions, they became the Greeks and Romans. So the Greeks and Romans are in fact Edomites according to prophecy. So to answer the question from earlier, how did the Greeks and Romans end up in the land of Japheth? I'm going to pull a precept in Genesis chapter 27. So Genesis 27. Genesis 27. Let me go get it. Genesis 27. Right? In verse number 38, it says, And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. So Esau was blessed that he would reign vast, he would reign the earth, in lack of better terms. He would have a fat nation and lots of land. If you look at Mount Seir, I mean, that, when else was this prophecy fulfilled? So we got to keep reading here. It says, and by the sword shall thou live. Meaning he would live by the sword. He would constantly be at war and conquest through violence. It says, and thou shalt serve thy brother, which he served Judah. He served Judah during the time of David all the way to Joram, which is about 848, 841. Right? It says, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So that prophecy was fulfilled in the Edomites revolting. And the fatness of the earth part, that happened, what we're reading right now, through the Europeans growing, all based on this here. So the fall of Mycenaean Greece wasn't just the collapse of a civilization. It left an opportunity, a power vacuum for new groups like the Edomites to step in and establish themselves. Those Edomites would go on to fulfill prophecy through further conquests, such as the Samnite Wars, the fall of Veii, right, which led to Rome's domination of Italy. And similarly, the Greeks emerged victorious from the Greco-Persian Wars, which was fought between 499 and 400 BC, I want to say. And that paved the way for their eventual unification and rise of an empire under Alexander the Great. So that was all fulfilled through them migrating into that land. Okay? All praise to the Most High. So earlier, earlier I mentioned, Greece was the foundation, right? They were the backbone, so to speak, of the culture, the heart of European society. They're the foundation of it, and you can see that in books like Mark. Right, I'm gonna get that real quick in Mark. We'll get Mark. All right, let's get that in Mark real quick. Okay, here we are. We'll get that in Mark. I'm going to show an example of that when you read Mark 7:24. So Mark 7:24 says, from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, and entered into an house, and would have no man know it, but he could not hide it. For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. Now this is the Canaanite woman you read about in Matthew 15:21. It's the same account. It says, the woman was a Greek, a Syro-Phoenician by nation, and she sought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. So it says she was a Greek, but a Syro-Phoenician by nature. She was a Canaanite, but it called her a Greek. Let's look into this word Greek. Well, I think I've seen this one earlier. This isn't the exact definition I want. This is going into a Gentile woman. It's going into a Gentile woman. Let's look at Galatians 3 and 29 or something. Let's pull up that one where it says Jew nor Greek. Okay. Let's pull up this definition of Greek here. All right. So Greek, it says a Greek either by nationality, whether native to the homeland of the Greeks. In a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, that made the language, customs, and learning of the Greeks their own. So it referred to people that followed the customs of the people as Greeks. Now, the funny thing about this is it's referring to this woman as a Greek rather than a Roman, because Rome was dominant at the time. Rome had the power at the time. So why would they name this woman as a Greek? And to dive into that, we have to deal with something called the Magna Graecia. I want to pull up Magna Graecia. right? Let's pull up Magna Graecia. Lucky. We're going to pull it up real quick. Right? So Magna Graecia. Yeah, here it is. All right. So it was a term that was used by for the Greek-speaking areas of southern Italy. Okay, so it says the settlements in this region, founded initially by metropolis mother cities, eventually evolved into strong Greek city-states, functioning independently. The settlers brought with them their Hellenic civilization and developed their own uh, civilization due to the distance from the motherland and influence of the indigenous people of southern Italy. So pretty much, yeah, this is what I wanted, where it says they also influenced the native peoples who became Hellenized after they adopted Greek culture as their own. So this would have included the Romans as well. Because again, the Greek settlers in northern Italy, they was Hellenizing the native people during the 8th century, which is the same time as the archaic Greece period. And that again would include Rome, because that came around 753 BC. Again, all after the revolt of the Edomites, by the way. So there's a plot twist we'll explore in a moment. But first, I want to just consider how Greek culture was directly borrowed from the Greeks. Okay, let's get Acts. Let's get Acts. Let me get that in Acts. I'm not sure. I should just went straight to it. Acts 17 and 22. So Acts 17 and 22. It'll show you that. Acts 17 and 22, it says, Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars's hill and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are superstitious. So Mars, when you look into it, it's not here, but I'm going to pull it up, right? I'm going to pull it up. Yeah, from Ares, the Greek name of the deity of war. So Mars and Ares are the same thing. So the Romans would call them Mars, but the Greeks called him Ares. It's literally just took their god, So I'm gonna get this in the 1611. Show another example of that, and I want Second Maccabees 4 and 13. Excuse me. So Second Maccabees 4 and 13. It says, Now such as the height of Greek fashions and increase of Hellenistic manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch and no high priest, that the priest had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of an unlawful allowance in a place of exercise after the game of discus called forth, not said in the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all. So this is during the time of the Greeks. They were throwing the discus. They were throwing a discus around and had places of exercise, like gymnasium. Now, discus is actually around the Olympics today, still to this day. You look at discus in the Olympics, right? They're still doing that. It's a video from 2024, and they're still throwing the discus. Is the discus still at the Olympic sport? It says yes, it's still an Olympic sport. Okay, discus is still an Olympic sport. So let's get another one. Let's get Second Maccabees. Like not here, right? Pull it up here. So let's get out the Apocrypha Second Maccabees. Second Maccabees. This time we're gonna go into chapter 6 and verse 2. I'm start at 1 actually. Says not long after this king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple of in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. Okay, so Jupiter represents Zeus. Trying to find some information on that. So Jupiter and Zeus, they got some differences, but nonetheless, they're the same god. They took their god yet again. So Zeus, because notice it said Jupiter was the defender of strangers. Zeus, defender of Greece. Yes, Zeus was the protector of Greece in ancient Greek mythology. So Zeus was the protector of Greece. Jupiter was the protector of Rome. I'll say so. Clearly, we see Greece and Rome shared the same pantheon of gods, gymnasiums, and even traditions in the Olympics. You know, the cultures are deeply intertwined. But here's the plot twist that comes in that I mentioned earlier. While Greece and Rome laid the foundation for European civilization, their culture and religious practices didn't come or originate from them. They actually inherited from the Mycenaeans. And we spoke on the Mycenaeans earlier. Pull them up again. Right? Pull up the Mycenaeans again. Right? Minoans and Clactic peoples that was around. These different people that was around prior, even the Etruscans. Let's pull them up. Even the Etruscans. Right? They got their traditions from these people. That includes gods like Zeus and Poseidon. You find that in something called the Linear B, written by the Minoans or the Mycenaeans. Their artistic and their political traditions actually all fit back to the Mycenaeans. Okay? Go to the next page here. And when you think about it, the Edomites, they actually have Shemite origins. So they were initially unfamiliar with these deities and practices, so they would have had to adopt these traditions after moving into the lands of Japhet. So the religious and cultural foundations of Rome and Greece were shaped by the Mycenaeans and other dark-skinned civilizations that lived in those lands. In essence, what we're seeing in Greece and Rome is a continuation of cultural legacy of these earlier civilizations that was taken on by Edomites, who rose to power as the Greeks and Romans. Okay? So the Greeks and Romans, the Edomites actually took these traditions. Like even the story of Troy, when you read about the Trojan War, that's going back and dating back to the Mycenaean culture. The way that they put their cities together is the same way the Greek city-states did it. So the Edomites would have moved into the lands of Japhet and took on the culture of the people of that land. Even when you look into Rome's religion, any prior religion, they don't have any prior religion before getting Hellenized by the Greeks, which the Greeks got their information from the Mycenaeans. So let's talk about Rome's unparalleled influence on Europe. So number one, they dominated the entire region of Europe, which we stated earlier. I'm gonna get a preset first Maccabees. Actually, let's get it on here. Let's get it on here, right? Let's get it on here so you guys can see it. Right. So the first, all right. So let's get First Maccabees, the 8th chapter. We'll get First Maccabees, the 8th chapter. First Slock, I put 1 and 8. Slock. So First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, right? get it. So this is during the Greek Empire. Right? All right. So it says, now Judas had heard of the Romans that they were mighty, valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and made a league of enmity with all that came unto them. Because that's what the Romans were doing. They were just joining themselves, letting people join themselves unto them. That was a part of how they got down. All right. It says, and that they were men of great valor, and it was told of them also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians. Right? It says, and that wasn't supposed to happen. Among the Galatians, and that they had conquered them and brought them under tribute. So this is going into the War of Galatia, which is 189 BC. The War of Galatia is 189 BC. And that kind of secured Rome's dominance over Asia Minor. Okay, when you eventually look at Rome, let me pull it up real quick so you can get a visual of what Rome actually ruled at the height. So you will see it's literally all of Europe, as you can see. So yeah, so they got Asia Minor secured. You see Greece, you see the northern Africa, you see all these different places that the Romans secured, and then you see the Levant here, Israel. Okay. It says, and what they had did in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of silver and gold, which is there. Okay, and that's going into the battle of what's that? Illipa, right? Which basically gave them control during the Second Punic War of the Iberian Peninsula, which is where Spain and Portugal is. You see how their dominance is starting to come over the region, even during the time of the Greeks. Okay, and the Greeks, just so you know, they never reached their peak power because they actually end up splitting during the time of Alexander. I should have pulled that up so you could have seen a map of Greece, what they actually reigned. So this is all the lands that Greeks actually reigned over. Pretty vast kingdom. You see, this is Macedon here, and Egypt and all these lands, but it ended up getting broken apart during Alexander's reign, and I'm gonna get that in Daniel chapter 8 and verse 5 real quick. Daniel chapter 8 and 5. Because during the Greek Empire, you hearing about the rise of the Romans. The Greeks, believe it or not, was trying to stop that. And we're going to see that in a moment here when we keep reading in 1 Maccabees 8. But I want to get this, Daniel 8, verse number 5. It says, and I was considering, behold. In fact, let's get it so y'all can follow along. We're going to do that. We're going to do that actually. Pull it up in the blue letter. Pull it up for y'all. Right? Put it up for y'all. All right. Right, and it says, and as I was considering, behold, and he-goat came from the west of the face of the whole earth. So the he-goat came from the west. The he-goat represents Alexander. When you literally read the rest of the chapter, it says the first of Greece. So the Persian Empire had all this, but out the west came a he-goat. It says, and touched not the ground, because he conquered quickly. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. That's talking about Alexander. It says, and he came to the ram that had two horns, which is Persia, Macedon, and the Medes. It says, which I had seen standing before the river, and the ram ran unto him with fury and power. And I saw him close. And I saw him close unto the ram, and he moved with choler against him and smote the ram and brake his two horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. And he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. That's going into what we read earlier, 1 Maccabees 1:1. He smote Darius. You got the war of the Persian Gate. You got the war of I believe Isis, AISSUS. You got Battle of Gaugamela, something to that effect. Maybe pronouncing it wrong, but these are different wars that was fought during this time period, right? So now here it says, and therefore the he goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. Alexander died, and it came up four notable ones toward the toward the four winds of heaven. So the kingdom actually ended up breaking into four different kingdoms. So they never had this kind of might and force. And the whole time right here in Italy, the Romans were conquering all these different lands because they were broken up. This is a prophecy about something called the Wars of the Diadachi. The Wars of the Diadachi is also known as the Wars of Alexander's. The War of Alexander's successors. Wars of the Diadachi, right? The Wars of Alexander's successors. 275 to 322 BC. Or 322, so I get to 275 BC. Don't say 281. It's my first time seeing 275, but nonetheless around the same time period. So I want to get another one on this in Daniel 11. Daniel 11, starting at verse 1. Right, it says, and also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm the strength unto him. And now I shew thee the truth. Behold, there stand up yet three kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than them all. That's talking about Xerxes. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up he should stir up all against the realm of Grecia. So it's not the kingdom, it's the realm of Grecia. Because it was the city states, like I mentioned earlier, like Argos, Delphi, you had Corinth, Athens, Sparta. That's where you get the movie 300 from. That was Xerxes versus Sparta, the Greco-Persian Wars, which Greece came out on top of. It says, and a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will, Alexander. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of the earth, and not to his prosperity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others besides those. So his prosperity didn't get the kingdom, and it wasn't to his actual dominion, his actual reign. It's split into four different kingdoms. Right, you got the Ptolemaic kingdom, which was based in Egypt. You got the Seleucid Empire, which was in Syria, Mesopotamia, Persia. You got the Antonagic kingdom, and then the Lacedaemonian kingdom. That's what it ended up splitting into. And I want to maybe it'll show me a map here. Right. You got Lacedaemonian kingdom. You got Cassander right here, that reigned in Macedon, the Antonagic. You got Ptolemy, and the yellow is Seleucid. Okay. So that's what ended up happening. And this is during the Seleucid, well, Seleucid and Ptolemy was both reigning at this time. Excuse me. What we read in the first Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 8. And this was also written during the time of Darius the First, I believe. Yeah, Darius the First, which was around 160 BC. So that's why all the wars I'm mentioning here are before 160 BC, because he was hearing about it. So after he conquered Spain, let's see what else he heard about. We'll jump down to verse 5. It says, besides this, how they discomfited in the battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Chittims, which we understand is talking about Greece over there, with others that lifted up themselves against them and had overcome them. That's talking about the Third Macedonian War. That pretty much took out the Macedonian Empire. Okay, so let's look at Rome again. This is Macedon right here. I'm in the way. Lock it. Pull this up. See if I can visit this. See if I can blow this up real quick. See if I can blow this thing up. All right. So Again, this is Macedon in this area, right? So it dissolution Macedon. They gain control here. They gain control here during the Second Punic War. They're fighting to gain control over Northern Africa at that time as well. It says, or Salaki, I'm reading here. And next, it says, how also Antiochus the Great, which is Antiochus the Epiphanes' father, a king of Asia, because he was the king of Asia Minor, which is the Seleucid Empire, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots and a very great army, was discomfited by them, and how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and that which they was agreed upon. That's the Treaty of Apamea. Right, this war is the Roman Seleucid War, which was fought between 192 and 188 BC. It says, in the country of India and Media and Lydia, and of the goodliness countries which they took of him and gave to Eumenes. They gave those countries to Eumenes. Okay. And now let's get John the Revelator's vision of Rome. How they further conquested as well. Of course, this thing is. All right. So Rome again was the first to dominate the entire region. That's what we're going into. Okay. So we get Revelation chapter 17, verse 14. No, that's not what I want. I want 17 to verse number 10. Going into the seven heads. It says, in the seven kings, it's like there are seven kings. 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other one is not yet come. When he cometh, he must reign a short space. So now I want to touch on these 5 kings real quick. So now I want to touch on these 5 kings real quick. So just bear with me. Let me get that pulled up. All right, so let's write this down. 7, we go get the, I wrote it in, I got the wrong thing. I don't want that. I want the colorful one. Let's get the colorful one, man. Let's get the colorful one. So you can see it better. All right, so again, you got Britain. Write these down again. I kind of wrote weird. You got Britain, Rome, Greece, of course. That's who we talking about. You got Germany. Again, I know my handwriting is pretty bad, but just bear with me. So then you got France. You got Russia. Then there's Spain. So again, that's the 7 heads. So it's saying 5 are fallen. So you got the French and Gaul, they fell to the Romans. You got Britannica, they fell to the Romans. Hispania fell to the Romans. Germania didn't fully get conquered, but nonetheless, they were conquered by the Romans. And then you got the Greeks, of course. And the Battle of Corinth, they finally took it over. It says 1 is yet come, which is the Romans. 1 is, which is Rome, because during the time of John, Rome was. And Russia had not come yet because they came under the Calvian Rus. Later. They came later down the road. But Rome dominated these different nations even during the time of John the Revelator. All right. So they literally had dominance over that whole region. Again, I'll pull that up. Pull that up here. The map of Europe right here. See? Dominated the whole land of Europe and they height. You even see it up here with Britain. Okay. So that's how they dominated the whole region. Now, the 10 horns is going into the part where I was saying that once the kingdom split, once Rome fell, it reshaped the continent and grew into the nations we know today. Because it went from this nation to Europe as we see it today, which I can pull up right here. Look at map of Europe. Pull up a map of Europe. Here's a map of Europe right here. Spain, Portugal, France, United Kingdom, all that stuff. So it went from Rome to this. And how did it do it? Through their fall. It did it by actually falling as a nation. We go read that. We're going to read that in Daniel. Let's go back to Daniel, the 7th chapter. This is Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. This is going into all the different nations that will reign from Babylon to the Persians to the Greeks to the Romans. And this is talking about the Greeks right here. We're going to start here. So it says, after this I beheld and lo, another like a leopard, because Alexander conquered quickly. And he actually wore leopard skin when you actually look at pictures of it. It says, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also, like it had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So that's again the 4 heads. It's split to the 4 kingdoms, like we read earlier. The 4 different generals. It says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. So this is going into the Romans now. That's the 4th and final beast. Like it says in 2nd Esdras 6 and 9, it says, Esau is the beginning, or Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So the Edomites will be in reign in the last days, which are the Romans. Because America is just an extension of Rome. It says, and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth, and it devoured and break in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet. And it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So that 10 horns is going into how Rome reshaped the continent when it fell. Okay, so let's get 2nd Esdras real quick. We go dive into this. Let's get a quick understanding on this. Doesn't include the Apocrypha. Get the Apocrypha. All right, so get 2nd Esdras. Right, verse I got here. 2nd Esdras chapter 12 and verse 11. Okay, just to show you something here. So it says, the eagle whom thou sawest came from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel, but it was not expounded upon him. Therefore I will declare it unto thee. So this is the same beast that Daniel saw that we're about to read about. Now, I want to go back to this board here. I want to write some stuff down for us to get together. So just bear with me. Erase all this 7 horn stuff. Okay. That's erased. Got a clean slate. Going to it. So I want to talk about this beast. that he saw. So this beast, right? Bear with me. Make sure it's writing. This was an eagle. I did it again with this thing. Go right, man. Again, I gotta switch the pen. I gotta switch the actual pen out. All right, so this was an eagle. The eagle equals the fourth beast in Daniel 7. So this eagle had 3 heads, 12 feathers, or 12 feathered wings, rather. And it had 8 contrary feathers. It had 8 contrary feathers. So the 3 heads is the USA, EU, and Russia. That's what those heads are. The 12 feathers are the first 12 emperors. First 12 emperors, which I want to give y'all a list of that real quick. I'm gonna pull up a document. I'm gonna type that out for y'all so y'all can have the 12 feathers. So this is the 12 feathers right here. You got Julius Caesar. You got Caesar Augustus. You got Tiberius. You got Claudius. Let's do it in order. You got Caligula. You got Claudius. You really can't see. Let me zoom in for y'all. All right, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Octo, Vitellius, Vespasian, not sure how to spell that. Vespasian, okay. Vitellius, Vespasian. You got Titus, and you got Domitian. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, that's the 12. You got Julius Caesar. So you can write these dates down. Caesar Augustus, 27 BC to 14 AD. Tiberius, 14 to 27. And he stop raining. 37. Caligula was 37. 41. That was 41 to 54. That was 54 to 68. All these guys reigned the same time period. Vitellius, 69. Station, 69. Till he stopped reigning. 79. It was 79 to 81. 81 to 96. All right, so you can write this down. That's the 12 feathers right there. That's the 12 feathers right there. All right, screenshot it, whatever you got to do. That's the 12 feathers. All right. Cool. So get back to this. And you got 8 contrary feathers, which really just represent various aspects. How do I explain it? It's broken up into 4s, and it's different aspects of the Roman Empire. All right. Yeah, that's what these feathers are. That's what these feathers represent. Like you got 2 that represent Nerva from Romulus, Augustus. And you got 2 that represent the Edomites, a remnant that'll be left in the last days. You got 2 that's the Eastern Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. Then you got 2 that represent Spain, Britain, and France. That's why they're contrary, because they don't work like the first 12. So let's go second address. Let's get to it. I want to get, well, share the screen. Get back to second address. Get back to second address, and we're going to keep reading on down, right? Chapter 13, it says, behold, the days will come, there shall rise up a kingdom upon the earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it. And the same shall reign, in the same shall 12 kings reign one after another. That's the 12 wings, 12 feathered wings. And we just went into the 12 feathers. Whereof the second shall begin to reign, and shall have twice, and shall have more time than any of the 12. Caesar Augustus, he reigned 40 years, 27 BC, 14 AD. And this do the 12 signify which thou sayest. Right, that's the 12 wings. As for the voice which spakest, which thou heardest speak, that thou sawest not to go up from the head, but from the midst of the body thereof, this is the interpretation. That after the time of that kingdom there shall arise great strivings. That's going into the crisis of the 3rd century. That's the crisis of the 3rd century. That's what that's talking about. It says, and it shall stand in peril of falling, nevertheless, it shall not then fall, but shall be restored again to its beginning. And when it got restored, that's when it ended up splitting between the Western and Eastern Roman Empire. It says, whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, this is the interpretation. Now that's going into the contrary. It says that in him there shall arise 8 kings, whose time shall be but small and their years swift. It's not actually 8 kings, it's contrary. So it moves in a different spirit. That's why it says, and 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. The middle time, can't really highlight it. The middle time approaching is going into the fall of the Western Roman Empire, right? Middle Ages. See when they say the Middle Ages start. It says approximately 500 to 1500 AD, which is the Western Roman Empire collapse. Yep, it collapsed in 476 AD, Roman Empire. That's what happened, okay? So this ended up collapsing. Now let's show you an example of that. Pull up some images. This is Eastern and Western Rome right here. So the Western Rome actually fell. Okay, that's how the Eastern ended up kind of lasting a little longer, and eventually the Holy Roman Empire came about in the 800s. So let's see if this is going into it. Yeah, cool. Now this is what I wanted to pull up. So the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 467, it created a power vacuum that was filled by various Germanic tribes. So once this thing fell, different Germanic tribes started to come into play. Like the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals, Franks, Burgundians, Burgundinas, the Lombards, the Suebi, Heruli, Anglo-Saxon, and Alemanni. And I want to actually write that down. That's going into those 10 horns. That's going into those 10 horns. That's going into those 10 horns. Visigoths. Ostrogoths. Vandals. Franks. Burgundians. Lombards. Suebi. Neroli. The Anglo-Saxons. Right, I know you heard of those people before, right? Those are 10 different Germanic tribes, right? It's like that ended up coming into Rome. When you think about it, like the Franks, right? They came to be modern French, modern French people. They became the Holy Roman Empire in Germany and things like that later. You got the Visigoths, which they got conquered by the Moors in the 700s, but they ended up reconquering during the Reconquista and became Spain and Portugal. The Anglo-Saxons going into England. The Ostrogoths actually reigned Italy for some time, and the Lombards eventually conquered them. Okay, so these different nations, or these different, supposed to be Vandals, these different Germanic tribes came into Europe. And that's where you get the 10 horns from. And they eventually evolved into modern kingdoms that we know today. So the blending of Roman and Germanic cultures during this period set the foundations for medieval European society, which deeply influenced modern society, from the legal systems like common law that you find in the UK and America, to education structures like universities, the idea of bachelor's, master degrees, that all comes from medieval Europe. And many cultures and traditions that we recognize today traces back to medieval Europe. Like religious festivals, Christmas, Easter, that all was shaped during that era. And that's how you know it has a more pagan tradition, because it's Germanic culture mixed with the Roman culture. And these Germanic people have always been around on the outskirts, known as the barbarians of Roman civilization. So once it fell, they entered in and the customs mingled and it grew into what we see today. That's why, again, Christianity, which originates from Rome, has all these different elements of paganism because it comes from the Germanic people. Even if you look into Europe and the Germanic people, Easter, they I'm gonna just pull it up. There's something called an eulog that they dealt with when it came to Easter. Just want to show y'all that real quick. Let me my internet at. All right, cool. So let's pull that up real quick. I want to keep this up. I want to get this. Let's see if I can find this. Here it is. Check that out. Easter right here. So West Germanic spring goddess. I seen something earlier about eulogs and things like that. Let me see. Germanic. Easter pagan. Yeah, it's celebrated at the spring equinox, which is around the time of Passover. Yep, it says originally known as the spring equinox. The word Easter parallels the German word yeah, the Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring. Something with an eulog as well that I seen. Something about a log or something like that. Traditions. Is this it? That's a okay. That's more so. Okay, that's more so Christmas. That's why it says during the Christification. Check that out. It says it's a winter festival historically observed by Germanic people, right? That was incorporated into Christmas during the Christification of Germanic people. Because a lot of them turned to Christianity, the old Roman customs, and they just mixed it with their own selves. So Rome's influence on Europe is unmatched, not only for dominating the region, but for reshaping the continent. Its fall didn't end an empire, it set the stage for new kingdoms that would shape medieval Europe and impact modern society. The collapse allowed tribes like the Franks and Visigoths to rise, ultimately leading to the formation of France, Spain, and England. All three of those nations are part of the seven-headed dragon that we discussed. So, throughout this lesson, we saw how Greece and Rome laid the foundations of European society. Greece set the cultural stage, right? Greece set the cultural stage. Greece set the cultural stage with its philosophy, art, and politics, while Rome's dominance reshaped the continent and created the framework for modern nations like France, Spain, and England. The fall of Rome didn't just end an empire, it allowed new kingdoms to emerge and fulfilled the prophecy of the seven-headed dragon in Revelation, which symbolizes the European power structure that shapes the world today. So all praise to the Most High. Make sure y'all hit that like button, share this video, and let me know what you learned in the comment section. Until next time, stay occupied, Israel. Shalom.